your ultimate goal in terms of research is to be the principal investigator of a grant that you're going to submit. But there are lots of other roles that one can take on a research grant. And so I'm going to go through some of the different roles and try and differentiate what some of the differences are, because you may also be invited to take on a role in somebody else's grant. And so we need to kind of sort out what this terminology is. So first of all, the principal investigator, the PI. This is the person who is responsible for the preparation, the conduct, and the administration of a research grant. And it really has two major parts to it. It has the responsibility for the technical piece, the science of the project, but it also has responsibility for the administration, for the financial piece, for the reporting back to the funding agency, and for knowing policies and guidelines associated with having a grant, especially when it's a federal grant, because there's lots of pieces that are related to that. And so being a PI really takes a lot of different skills, not just knowing the science of the topic that you're working on. Okay, so can there be multiple program directors or multiple principal investigators? And this is a relatively new model, but as the NIH has recognized the importance of team science and recognized the importance of collaborations, the PI, this multiple PI model has been introduced. There is no limit on the number of PIs that can be identified on a particular project. So there's no upper limit. But all of the PIs that are involved in a multiple PI model take equal responsibility for the running and coordination and reporting back to the sponsoring agency about what's happening within that study or that project or that program. In identifying or having this multiple PI model, you are required to write a plan, some kind of administrative plan that shows, first of all, the need for having multiple PIs, and how that plan is going to be manifest, how you're going to communicate with each other, how often you will communicate with each other, and the specific roles and responsibilities that might be different. So you do have to justify the need for having multiple PIs. Key personnel. The key personnel are people that are actually listed and named on the grant application. And the key personnel are going to be people who are going to be contributing to the science, the conduct, and the development, of that grant. A co-investigator is somebody that the PI is going to identify. Usually that co-investigator is going to be a key personnel. The PI is also responsible for identifying investigators. Investigators may carry out some of the work, but you can have investigators who may not necessarily be named on the grant application as key personnel. So in terms of the hierarchy, you have your PI, you may have your co-PI, you can have co-investigators, but you can also have investigators that may not necessarily be key personnel and may not necessarily be named. Often they may be collecting the data for you, and they may assist in certain aspects of analysis. Collaborations versus consultations. A consultant is usually somebody who is going to be paid fee for service. The consultant is usually not a person who does too much work on the grant. But the consultant is maybe going to lend their expertise in terms of the science, the interpretation. Often the consultant, we may ask people to be consultants because they are important people in the field. They're well recognized. And they may give, to the reviewers, they may allow their expertise in terms of what they've contributed to the grant development will be valued by the reviewers who are looking at the grant submission. Consultants may also be your statistician. Although sometimes your consultant, your statistician may also be a subcontractor. A subcontractor, if a person is at the same institution that you are at, you usually would not have a subcontract with them. Usually a subcontract is going to be saved for somebody who's at a different institution, where there is some kind of legal document that is written that identifies the scope of the work that they're going to be doing and identifies how much they're going to be paid. If you have somebody at another institution, perhaps that's just collecting data for you, recruiting subjects, and maybe just collecting data for you, but are not contributing necessarily to the science, you may want them to be listed as a subcontractor as opposed to a collaborator. And some of this will play in when you are determining things like authorship. And if somebody is at the same institution as you, then as you're figuring out what everybody's going to be doing and what the scope of work might be, then you probably want to develop some kind of memo of agreement that will be some kind of written document that will identify what they're going to be doing. And this could be just as simple as an email. That lists, what the understanding is on both your parts about what that person is going to be doing. Some people are involved in the development of the experimental design and the protocol development. You may have people involved in equipment purchases, in the recruitment, in the data collection, the data analysis, and the dissemination of the results. So all of this, you want to be able as much as possible to identify up front. And this is going to be written in the statement of work in the SOW that will be a part of the subcontract or a part of your memo of agreement.